Karen McCarthy, and it's time to Karenize. Today's Wednesday when we talk about spiritual health, and we're continuing, excuse me, I've got something tickling, a piece of hair, golly. Um, Continuing our study on the Trinity. We went through the three big characteristics of God, and now we're talking about Jesus. Last week we talked about Jesus as our Savior, and today we're going to talk about something else about his character. I'm going to preface it by telling a story. Oh, quite a few years ago, I had a friend with a young child who had the gift of compassion. That's what we're going to talk about today. So he was at daycare one day, and there was another child who was upset and just very teary, having a hard time of it. And this 4-year-old child offered her his favorite toy, probably because that stuffed animal always cheered him up. The toy was rejected by the kid. You know how they get when they're upset. They don't want anything. Rejected it. And nothing really was thought of it by the adults in charge. But when my friend came to pick up her son, hours later, she was told that he'd been really quiet that day and chose to sit by himself and not play. When she questioned him about it, she discovered that he had been consumed by worry for this tearful little friend of his and had been praying for her to feel better. He couldn't even think of anything else, focus on anything else, because his compassion was for that child, and he just sat there the rest of the day praying for her. Isn't that sweet? Well, the second role of Jesus in our lives is compassion. You know, the New Testament lots of times shows his compassion, like in Matthew 9:36, it says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Do you ever feel like that? Harassed and helpless? I know I sure have in my lifetime. And I know, like, before I retired, it's a lot better now, but before I was retired, I always seemed to have too many irons in the fire, not enough daylight to get things done, and I was always feeling stressed. Now, a lot of that was my issues. In fact, I remember once someone told me, you know what, Karen? You're the only one that thinks you have to get all that done in one day. And that came from expectations when I was a child and a corporate job that no matter how much you did, it was never enough. So I had all those expectations on me and began internalizing that. But anyway, Jesus has compassion on us, and he knows how harassed we can feel and how stressed out we can be. You know, there's really nothing that we can experience that he didn't experience himself in some way, shape, or form. And Hebrews 4:15 tells us we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses or our problems, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin. Now, that part I can never get my head around because I can't imagine not sinning. But he did that. He did not sin. But he came to earth so that he could really relate to what we're going through. I mean, there's a difference between, what are the two words? I can't even think. Anyway, there's a difference between understanding what someone's going through and just being empathetic or there's a difference. There's one where you've experienced it yourself and one you're just, I can't think of the word. If you can think of the word I'm looking for, tell me. Anyway, he experienced, he's experienced pretty much everything that we can possibly go through in different ways than in our modern world, of course, but he's experienced it. So he understands your pain. He understands your struggles, and he has compassion for you. You know, if you look through the Gospels, you'll see over and over that Jesus looked at people and had compassion. The only ones he didn't have compassion were the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who were pompous, arrogant, rule followers. Well, they expected other people to, but they didn't always follow the rules. Didn't have a lot of compassion for them. But anyone else, no matter how big the sin, he had compassion on them. And he is moved by our pain today too. So when you're feeling harassed, helpless, alone, lonely, whenever you need an emotional boost, look to the Savior. Rest assured that he sees you and your pain, and you can be, taken figuratively into his arms and cuddled, soothed by the Lord, much the same way a mother soothes her fretful infant. I was going to say faithful infant. He understands. I was going to say something else and it went right out my head. I'm doing a fast today for health reasons, so my brain is just a little blah, blah. So anyway, have a great day, and remember, you can always rest in him and he will help soothe you. Oh, I know what I was going to say. When I am plagued by depression or anything like that, sadness, if I turn my thoughts to him, if I put on some worship music, if I read the Bible, if I pray, I can snap out of that pretty quickly. If I don't do that and I dwell in it, it magnifies and amplifies and becomes almost insurmountable. So remember, if you're starting to go through something, the best way to combat that is to rest in him from the very beginning. So have a great one, and I will talk to you next week.